For those of you who missed class on 331, this is the video to watch and to submit any questions that I ask to me via email, slight@tarbut.com. Here we go, everyone. So first of all, there are three terms that we should know at this point. Please submit those three terms for me. This is questions 1, 2, and 3. And if you don't know these words, one is machloket, 2 is machloket l'shem shamayim, and 3 is machloket she'eno l'shem shamayim. We're going to be using those terms, and I'm going to throw them around, even though I don't use a lot of Hebrew in the class. We're going to be using those words particularly, and I want to encourage you that if you don't know those words yet, that you can't submit them to me, then you should be re-looking at the video, that the Edpuzzle video for this past week that was due today on 8/31. So 3 terms that you should be able to translate and submit to me: machloket; 2, machloket l'shem shamayim; 3, machloket she'eno l'shem shamayim. Again, all of those terms are very explicitly in your Edpuzzle from this past week. If you don't know it yet, go back and view that first, because these three terms are going to be pretty simple for you here. All right, so our first stop in kind of looking at machloket, looking at the idea of disagreement in the world, is the following questions. Did God wish to create a world in which machloket, in which disagreement did not exist? And I'd like you, for question number 4, to kind of answer, give me your thoughts from the gut. Do you think that God wanted to create a world when God just began the world in the beginning of the Torah, the beginning of the 5 books of Moses, where we hear about the creation of the world? Is God's desire to have that, for there to be no disagreement whatsoever? Okay. And for question number 5, if God attempted to create a machloket-less society, let's again, I'm not sure what you answered for question number 1, but let's just assume that God attempts to create a machloket-less society, a society with no disagreement whatsoever. Then how do you think humans, if you know anything about the first creation story and the Garden of Eden story, how do they respond to God's attempt to create a utopian machloket-less society? And I'll ask you for question number 6 is a machloket-less society utopia? Is a society that has no disagreement whatsoever, is that utopia? I mean, that's question number 6. All right, here we go. So we're going to look right now at the Garden of Eden story. And I'm going to ask you, I'm going to go through these slides slowly, but you as the reader are going to have to read each of these slides. That's what we did in class. Here's slide number 1. Maybe I'll read it for you. Now God formed a man from the dust of the earth and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Now God planted a garden in Eden in the east. There he placed the man that he had created. God planted trees that were beautiful to look at with fruits that were good to eat. God placed man in the garden to farm it and to care for it. God gave the man a warning, saying, "You may eat from every tree of the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for on the day you eat from it, you will surely die." God said, "It's not good for man to be alone. I will make a companion for him." The man named every tame animal and every bird in the air, as well as wild beasts. However, the man still did not have a suitable companion for himself. God then made the man fall into a deep sleep. God made the rib that he took from the man into a woman. The man and his wife were both naked, arumim, but they were not ashamed by each other. The snake was the trickiest, arum, of all the wild animals that God had created. The snake asked the woman, "Did God really say that you may not eat from any of the trees of the garden?" The woman answered the snake, "We may eat from the tree of all the other trees of the garden, but God warned us, 'Do not eat or even touch the fruit of the tree of that is in the middle of the garden, or else we will die.' The snake hissed at the woman, 'No, you will certainly not die. Rather, God knows that on the day you eat from it, your mind will be open and you will be like the angels, and you will know good and evil. The woman was convinced that the fruit of the tree was good to eat and that the tree was a way to gain wisdom. She took some of its fruit and ate it. She also gave some to her husband, and he ate it. The minds of both of them were open, and they were ashamed. But they were ashamed because they were naked. So they sewed together fig leaves. Then God asks, "Where are you? Did you eat from the tree which I warned you not to eat from?" The man answered, "The woman you gave me, she brought me the fruit from the tree, and I ate it." Then God asked the woman, "Why did you disobey me?" The woman replied, "The snake tricked me, and I ate it." So after this, the punishments are given out. The snake, who must crawl instead of walk, actually in the beginning of the Torah, there's a sense that actually the snake was actually walking upright on two legs, but the punishment is legs cut off, has to now swarm around. And the man is given a punishment. He has to work for a living instead of being provided for. And the woman is punished because she will have pain in childbirth. And the Torah continues after that. The man named his wife Eve. God clothed Adam and his wife with leather garments that he made for them. God said, "Man has now become one of us, knowing good and evil. What if he decides to eat from the tree of life and live, not life, live forever?" So God drove man from the Garden of Eden to farm the earth. God drove the man away and put angels with revolving swords at the east of Eden to guard the path of the tree of life. All right. A few questions that I'd like to ask. So first of all, is the world that God provides the first man and woman in the world that God provides the first man and woman? How many possible ways are there to rebel? Right. Number two, why would God create any way to rebel if God was creating a utopia? Why not just create a world where the very possibility of machloket does not exist? Question number, sorry, that was question number 8. Question number 9 is, the human response to God's world is to immediately run towards the one item that God says is forbidden. What does this fact say about the human's need to rebel, test, and challenge? Number 10 or 11, I think. Adam and Eve are kicked out of the garden because of their first act of rebellion. Is this exile a punishment, or is it a consequence, or is it right, is it an inevitable consequence, meaning is it a punishment, or is it part of God's master plan? So pick one of those ideas. Is it a punishment? Is it inevitable consequence, or is it part of God's master plan? Pick one and please explain. I think we're on number 12. So, by the way, so interesting enough, God asks, I want to go back to this moment here. God asks, "Where are you?" Right? And there's a famous Hebrew word for that is ayeka, right? God says, "Where are you?" Ayeka. And we have a great, this guy right here, his name is Rashi, and he is the great question answer of the Torah. He looks very deeply at the Torah and says, "I want to ask questions about the Torah. There's more to the Torah than meets the eye." God is not a blabbermouth. God gave us every single word for a reason, and we need to figure out why it's there, what it's doing, what it's there to teach us. So Rashi is filled with question after question after question. And here Rashi has a question about when God says, "Where are you?" So what do you think God is asking by when God or what do you think Rashi has a question when God says, "Where are you?" What do you think Rashi's question is? And that's question 13. Right. So Rashi's question is as follows. Rashi is saying, "Huh? Why would God say, 'Where are you?' God is God. God knows where every single person is at all times. God knows everything. God has control of everything. Why would God be asking something that is just not true? God knows exactly where Adam and Eve are, knows they're hiding, knows what they've done, but still God asks, 'Where are you?' Why?" That's a question that I want to ask you at this point, question number 14 or 15, I think. And here's what Rashi says. God knows where they are, but God used the words ayeka in order to engage Adam in a conversation so that he would not be afraid to answer. So my question is, what is it that God wants Adam to do? What is it that God wants Adam and Chava to do? That's question number, I think, 16 probably. And here is Rabbi Jonathan Sachs's idea. He says The first human instinct is denial. Man blames the woman. By implication, he blames God as well. It was, after all, he who made her, he who decided that it is not good for man to be alone. We hear for the first time the same conclusion: I am not responsible. I am not to blame. So summarize what Rabbi Sachs is saying. What was God hoping for? That's number 18. And number 19 is, what is the response doing? What does that teach God about something about the human being that God may not have known before him? Okay, and our final question is this. I think this is question number 20. What is the relationship, if any, between denial, personal responsibility, and machloket and rebellion? It's a hard question, but can you make a general statement about this relationship? All right, that's it. I'll see you next time on Ed Puzzle.